Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today, mostly because we're tackling a topic that literally has the power to completely rewire how you operate on a daily basis. We are diving deep into how the stories we tell ourselves, those really deeply held internal narratives, ultimately define our potential and completely dictate our ceiling for success. We're drawing on some intensely powerful source material today, stuff that really forces us to look in the mirror and ask if the narrative we're living out is the one we actually want to be writing. So get comfortable, because we are getting right to the heart of what holds us back, and more importantly, what propels us forward.
Okay, let's dive into this. Nobody is coming to save you. It's stark, it's uncompromising, and man, it immediately shatters that comfy little illusion so many of us walk around with. We kind of operate under this subconscious belief, right? That if we just wait long enough, a mentor, some huge lucky break, or the absolute perfect opportunity will suddenly just arrive to pull us out of our rut. But the source material is brutally clear here. There is no rescue team. There is no mom or dad waking you up to build your belief for you anymore. If you're sitting around waiting for someone to discover you, to pick you, or give you your big shot, you are literally going to be waiting forever. You have to save yourself.
And so I really want to ask you this directly. When you finally, truly realize that no one is coming to your rescue, what happens next? How do you respond? Do you freeze up and just shrink back into your comfort zone? Or do you step up and take radical ownership? Because that realization, that you are entirely on your own in driving your life forward, is a massive fork in the road. It's absolutely terrifying at first, but honestly, it is also deeply liberating once you choose the right path.
Let's unpack Section 1, the Savior Myth, Waiting for Rescue.
This brings us face to face with the reality of being stuck. And we've all been there, right? Consider the contrast here. Maybe you're waking up totally unmotivated, or maybe you literally feel pinned to the mattress with anxiety, just trapped in this tangled web of overthinking, constantly waiting for the perfect conditions. So many people wait until they magically feel confident, or until they get external validation from everyone around them cheering them on. But here is the hard truth. Knowing what you need to do, that's the easy part. The real $100 million question is this: how do you force yourself to execute when you feel scared, anxious, or just plain depressed? Because waiting to begin has never gotten anyone anywhere. Starting, that is the perfect condition.
The source describes a really powerful daily practice to help break out of this trap, and they call it confronting the dirty mirror. Every single morning, you have to look at yourself with absolute honesty and have a real conversation. You got to ask yourself the hardest question of all. Do you want to arrive at your deathbed knowing deep down that you had untapped potential, but you just didn't use it? People die with immense, world-changing potential every day simply because they were too busy waiting around or trying to be someone they weren't. You absolutely have to figure out who you are on this journey.
Moving right along to Section 2, Inner Narrative, Rewriting the Story.
Once you finally accept that you are the one in the driver's seat, shifting your identity essentially becomes your ladder out of the hole. Just look at the immense power of our internal stories here. The source gives this brilliant example. If you constantly tell yourself the narrative that you're just some scared, undereducated kid from Tacoma whose family has never accomplished anything, well, you're going to become exactly that. Why? Because that is what you firmly believe. But actually, scratch that. If you flip the script and adopt the identity of a learner, someone who learns faster, reads more, and puts in just an inhuman amount of work to improve their mind, everything shifts. When you become the learner, your starting point simply doesn't matter anymore. Literally, all that matters is where you were going.
Because ultimately, it boils down to this: identity and values drive behavior. If you want to change your life's output, you have to fundamentally change your internal vision of who you are. The narrative you tell yourself about yourself is literally everything. It dictates whether you spend your precious hours getting completely distracted by social media, just trying to escape reality, or whether you're taking deliberate, focused steps to consume knowledge and operate at a ridiculously high level. You have to actively change the direction your mind is going.
Which brings us to Section 3, Solitude versus Loneliness, the messy middle.
Adopting this newly empowered narrative? Yeah, it introduces a pretty painful transition phase. Our source makes a fascinating distinction here that I think most of us completely miss today. We tend to think being alone just means being lonely. But solitude and loneliness, even though they look externally identical to everyone else, are completely different beasts. Loneliness is a weakness. It makes us super uncomfortable in our own skin, which causes us to hide from our narrative by endlessly scrolling on our phones or just zoning out in front of the TV. Solitude, on the other hand, is where you actually rewrite your narrative. It is the strength of being alone. It is an absolute superpower. When you can sit in solitude, get into your own head and your own heart, and really understand your behaviors and your belief systems, you gain the unbelievable clarity needed to master your execution.
But claiming that superpower means you have to walk through what the Source calls the messy middle. The path of the exceptional person fundamentally requires being an exception, and that means you're going to feel the pain of being ostracized from your old group of friends, but you won't quite have the outcomes or successes yet to fit into a new, higher-level group. It is a lonely chapter for sure. You might even catch yourself asking if it's all worth it, because people are definitely going to push back. But the Source notes something so profound here. If everyone around you is cheering you on, you're probably just acting like everyone else. Often, the hate or the isolation you get along the way is actually just an early indicator of your success.
The speaker in our source material shares a deeply personal, pretty raw reality. They forged their entire narrative alone for 99% of their life. Think about that. No one was there to pat them on the back. They had to do all the heavy lifting alone, to forge their own path completely without a cheering squad. If you are going to create anything of massive, undeniable value in this life, you have to be willing to take those walks alone, to step away from the noise, and to build your own belief when you have absolutely nothing else to lean on.
And that kind of dedication requires making some really hard choices in the dark hours. At 3 a.m., there is always going to be a party happening somewhere. The bars are always open, no matter how old you get. It is always easy to find a cheap distraction. But you know what is not always open? The fleeting, incredibly difficult opportunity to actually achieve your wildest dreams and get ahead of your competition. Taking full advantage of those quiet, unseen moments. That is exactly where you build the pride, the satisfaction, and the bulletproof confidence that sets you apart from the pack. All right, final stretch. Section 4, taking radical ownership. Save yourself. Now we have to apply this to practical, everyday execution. How do we actually break down this concept of radical self-reliance? And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how to do it. First, once you're an adult, you have to parent yourself. You literally have to force yourself to do the work when you really don't feel like it. Second, you must become your own coach and your own primary motivator through all the endless daily battles. Third, when you inevitably fall into a hole, and trust me, you will, you have to understand that no one is tossing down a rope. You have to build your own freaking ladder out of it. And finally, no matter what the challenge is, you must simply get up and attack it head-on.
To really drive home this idea of extreme ownership, the Source pulls in a fantastic quote from basketball legend Kobe Bryant. "Boos don't block dunks." It's a beautifully raw metaphor, and honestly, it's pretty hard to argue with. The point is, if you put in the solitary time to become undeniably, incredibly good at your craft, no external vice, no bad situation, and no outside obstacle can actually stop your success. You essentially become a force of nature driven entirely by your own mastery.
Which leads us to the super blunt philosophy sitting right at the heart of this source material. No more excuses. I know it might sound a little harsh, but nobody cares if you lack time. Nobody cares if you didn't grow up with money. Nobody cares if you came from a bad neighborhood. And frankly, nobody cares about your problems. The world is just too busy focusing on itself. Complaining is entirely useless. The speaker gives this awesome example regarding LeBron James. To even come close to matching the sheer time and dedication a master like LeBron puts into basketball, the speaker realized they needed to go get a master's degree and a PhD in their own field just to compete on that same level of excellence. You can't make the other person wrong for being great. You can only look at your own life, take absolute ownership of your time, and do the hard work yourself. So, we arrive at the ultimate question today, the one you really have to answer for yourself right now. What is your internal narrative, and is it acting as a ceiling or is it a launchpad? Are you telling yourself a story that keeps you sitting on the sidelines waiting for a savior? Or are you adopting the identity of someone who builds their own ladder? It is time to stop sleeping on your own potential. Accept the challenge, embrace the messy middle, step right into the cold water, and release your brilliance to the world. No one is coming to save you, and honestly, that is exactly why you are going to win. Take ownership, rewrite your story, and go attack it.